morning, although in about 10 minutes it will be afternoon to you, my beautiful babes and babettes. I am your resident active advocate, and today I would like to talk to you about wow. I went through the list, and there are a number of movies in there that people probably haven't heard of in between The Incredibles and WALL-E. There's one that people I know definitely have, and that's Enchanted. But for now, insofar as I am capable, I would like to stick to the animated movies specifically. But between those two movies, as I say, there's a big long list of movies that people haven't really heard of or seen, I would assume, because there wasn't very much critical acclaim surrounding them. The one possibility would be Chicken Little, but I might want to consult with my lovely consultant on that one. Because I haven't seen it, so I would have to watch it first, but I don't know whether enough people have heard of it. That and Ratatouille, but I don't know the narrative of that one either. Haven't seen it. So today I would like to talk to you about Wallo, which is adorable in parts and very sad in other parts. I don't want to talk to you specifically about Wow himself. The adorable little clean up the planet robot. Oh, actually, no, he doesn't clean up the planet. He looks for plant life on the planet. Because, here we go, plot. Spoilers ahead. The entire surface of Earth has been made completely uninhabitable by human beings because, in this narrative, we ignored climate change. So everyone on Earth is invited onto this big, massive ship that they have out in space that it stays near to the planet, though, because the whole purpose of Waddle, and I keep saying it that way because that's how he says his own name, and it's very cute, but the whole purpose of Wally, he's one of the robots that is sent in, or who is sent in, to the planet to look for living plants, to look for some sign that the Earth is once again capable of sustaining life. On the big, massive colony ship itself, though, here's where I want to talk to you about this movie's disability narrative, because, like with The Incredibles, this is a very interesting one. All of the humans who live on this ship, except for the controlling body, for the most part, are morbidly obese. And when I say morbidly obese, I mean to the point where they are basically incapable of even standing up. In today's world, we do recognize morbid obesity, and I believe it is 300 pounds plus to be a form of disability because it would hinder your range of motion enough. It may also hinder your circulatory system enough that you would not be easily able to move. So you might need an assistive device like a wheelchair to be able to move yourself around. There are physical consequences, of which we are all aware, of being obese, of being overweight, right? But every single person that you see on this colony is morbidly obese because for the past however long they've been living on the spaceship colony, they haven't really had to do anything. They are sustained by the ruling body. This whole colony is an example of what you would nowadays call the nanny state, and it is extraordinarily advanced in terms of technology. People sit around in these big ergonomic chairs, and they're fed by machines, they're cleaned by machines. There's an announcement early on in the movie where it's like, try blue, it's this year's red, and everyone pushes a button and all of their red clothes turn blue. So this society, as I say, is very, very technologically advanced to the point where human beings no longer have to work for themselves, no longer have to sustain themselves. And the whole idea behind this is that through this technology, the ruling body of the colony is able to maintain absolute control. The whole idea here, and you could probably infer it earlier on in the movie, but even more towards the climax, when Wally comes back with the plant, this little teeny weeny sprout that he finds on Earth, and gives it to the head of the ship. He does not want to return to Earth. He has been running this colony for basically his whole adult life. He doesn't want to give up his power over humanity, which, if on a larger scale, on literally the planetary scale, he would have to do. In the case of a space colony of that kind, you would need a commanding officer for the whole thing, because it's just one single unit hanging on in space. Technically, that's what a planet is. A planet could be defined as like a very, 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 very large spaceship of a kind, just with its own atmosphere and, capable of moving itself, that sort of thing. But with an autonomous unit like the colony, you would need someone to move it around. You would need someone to determine what to do with it, where to go, how to go there. Just like astronauts in space nowadays, you need someone to captain the thing. And the guy in charge doesn't want to give up his power, even though it is provable that Earth could sustain life at this point. Wally only manages to find one teeny weeny little plant, but that right there is proof enough that they could return to Earth. The thing is, too, though, when the people find out about this, there's a bit of a torn reaction. On the one hand, we get to go home and live on our home planet, the origin of our species, On the other hand, but what do we do? What do we do? There might not be anyone to look after us. We would have to think and do and act for ourselves. And that right there is the whole point of autonomy. While on this space colony, the people don't have to worry about autonomy. They're just, like I say, sitting around all day, and they don't have to worry about caring for themselves. So ostensibly, intellectually, they have been rendered infantile. And I don't mean in the terms of intellectual disability. I mean in terms of what they feel compelled to do with their minds. There could be great scholars living on this ship, of course, because, there are people right now who are great scholars. People who learn enough and know enough to actually be able to fend for themselves. But the people have been living this way for so long that they no longer want to, they no longer feel capable of doing. And that is the idea, I think, behind government absolutism. So the disability narrative in this movie commingles with the political narrative of this movie. If we can keep you in such a state as to keep you infantile and in our control, then we don't have to worry about you. And you can eat yourself to death. We don't really care because we're still in charge. And that can translate, though I would say in a less malicious way, to caretakers for people with disabilities now, especially in the case of those who have intellectual disabilities. So, for example, I believe I've told you about the friend of mine who was born with intellectual disability, and she will never, despite being biologically 3 years older than me, she will never go beyond the intellectual capacity of a 6 or 7-year-old girl. And therefore, many of her decisions have to be made for her. She's not really capable of working. She can feed herself, she can clothe herself, she can clean herself. All of the essential functions of life, she can do those for herself. But food prep, for example, and laundry, that kind of thing, she could probably be taught how to do laundry very easily. But a lot of the time when people are in charge of the care of another person, it is that person, that caretaker, rather than the person with the disability, who determines on their behalf what they are capable of doing and what they are not capable of doing. This will, of course, happen without the say-so, without conversing with the person with the disability to find out what they could want to do, to find out what they feel capable of doing, and to allow them to test their own boundaries. So the whole point of this movie is that for decades, if not centuries, people have not been given the chance to test their own boundaries, to test what they could be capable of doing if they tried to get up off the chair. And they're not encouraged to, because the people in charge really like their power. So this is more of a macrocosmic and malicious view of the disability narrative of caretaker is in charge and caretakee doesn't need to feel compelled to make their own decisions or perform their own actions to the best of their ability. And I have a problem with that narrative because it shows an extreme disrespect for personal autonomy and for personal worth. So basically, that's the human narrative in WALL-E. Whereas with the little robots, who are adorable, you don't get any kind of disability narrative exactly, but even though they're in charge of cleaning up the surface of the planet and seeing whether it can sustain life, functionally, that makes no difference because it might give hope to the humans living on the colony, but in reality, the people, as I say, who are in charge want to remain in charge, and they would not be able to do that on a global scale, only on the scale of this contained unit in space, where they control things, control the environment, and decide where to go, when to go, and how to get there. So it basically shows that global government would not work, by the way, and I do like that point. In Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, there is the idea of the global state, or the world state as it is called in the book, where the world controllers have taken over the whole planet, and they work as a unit, as a body, to control the population of the planet. Having done so, by the way, of eliminating the principles of bioethics. And that is a lot of what you see on this colony, too, because, as I say, the people who live there are kept under rigorous control, but at the same time are permitted to basically waste their lives. We're not really given too much of a glance at what they do, what they are capable of doing, what they are permitted to do, because most of the narrative centers around WALL-E and his quest to find living plant matter on the planet. But it's inferred that the people, A, don't know that they are capable, and B, don't want to do things for themselves because they're just so used to living this way. And the problem is that complacency will create docility, will create, quite frankly, helplessness. And we don't really want that. For the sake of independent thought, we can't have that. We have to be able to retain autonomy and control over our lives as people with disabilities. So I think that, broadly speaking, that would be the takeaway narrative of this movie. And I really like it. And especially towards the end as well, because they are planning to go back to Earth, and the last thing you hear is like, and we'll plant pizza trees and hot dog trees. They have absolutely no idea how this works, but they'll figure it out once they get there, I guess. There should have been a sequel to this one. Like I say, WALL-E itself is really adorable. The little robot, he's very cute. Wow. Alright, so that is my analysis for today. And tomorrow, I'm not sure what we will be talking about, but I have an official list, and it'll be great. So, thank you for your lovely attention and participation. Bitch at me down in the comments, and that will be good, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Mwah!